Harper Audio presents The Great Village Show by Alexandra Brown. Read by Gabrielle Glaister.
Love is to the heart what the summer is to the farmer's year. It brings to harvest all the loveliest flowers of the soul. Anonymous. Prologue. Jessie Cavendish hadn't been sure about uprooting from their elegant Chelsea mews house and relocating to the quaint but quite muddy little village of Tindledale. Having grown up in a rural, close-knit, welly-wearing community, she knew firsthand how incestuous they could be and how isolated they could make one feel. Yet, as she hiked on up to the highest point overlooking the valley, landmarked by the biggest oak tree she had ever seen, pausing to catch her breath as she slipped off her cardie and tied it neatly around her waist, she realised that the more she saw of this idyllic part of the world, the more she rather liked it. Tindledale was surrounded by lush, undulating green hills, dotted with lambs and an abundance of pretty wild flowers, pink apple orchards and strawberry fields. At its heart lay an adorably cobbled high street, flanked either side with black timber-framed white wattle-walled shops with mullioned windows. It really was a special place. And Jessie wasn't the naive person she had been back then, when Sebastian had enticed her away to the bright lights of London, to the city where all the women lived fabulously glamorous lives in their pretty ballerina pumps, or so she had thought. But Jessie had grown to realise over the years that it was often far easier to get on board, as Sebastian was fond of saying, whenever one of his big, life-changing plans was mooted. Plus, the children would be so much happier in the village school, with its postage-stamp-sized playground and quaint clock tower on the roof. No more navigating the super-shiny 4x4. Sebastian had insisted she drive the triplets in the oversized but extra-safe tank, but she hated it, much preferring her clapped-out old and very small Mini, through the narrow, congested streets of London on the nursery school run. Moving here would mean just a short trundle through the village, where the triplets' new friends were bound to live, and perhaps Jessie would meet and make some friends of her own too. Yes, far nicer than having the children cloistered away inside some archaic boarding school, as Sebastian had been planning for far too soon after their 6th birthdays, having registered the children's names before they were even born. So at least she had managed to hold out for something in return, this time, for distancing herself from her old life, her family, her friends, her support network. But then Jessie was under no illusion that this was precisely why Sebastian was so keen for them to move down from London to the countryside. She'd make the best of it, as she always had, and maybe living in Tindledale would help them relax, Sebastian especially. That would be bound to have an enormously positive impact on them all. Jessie closed her eyes and tilted her face up towards the rejuvenating rays of the early summer sun, letting the warm breeze cool her flushed cheeks as she wrapped her arms around herself and then ran a hand over her perfectly taut abdomen. She allowed herself a moment of contemplation before her mind drifted back to more trivial thoughts. Would she manage to find a yoga class to replace the one she loved in London? Tindledale Village Hall, perhaps? The estate agent had mentioned the thriving community and all that it had to offer. Brownies, scouts, an amateur dramatics group, even a knitting club in the local haberdashery shop. And she'd been meaning to learn to knit for ages now. And something about a summer show being a big part of village life. Jessie made a mental note to find out exactly what this entailed, as it certainly sounded more exciting than the flower arranging sessions with the Women's Institute that Sebastian had said would suit her. And then something else occurred to Jessie, something that made her heart sing, something that she hadn't thought about for such a long time. Bees. Jessie had loved keeping bees as a child, and chickens. Her dad had taught her how. And for a while she had even written about country life for a variety of farming magazines, before her...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?